So, students, let us begin your chapter Grandmother. As I have told you, there will be conversation between Tom and Harry, and we will learn few things of speaking in English and how they speak about their grandmother as well. So, what happened? Harry comes to Tom's house. So, Harry says, seeing his grandmother, he says, "Who is she?" So, Tom says, "She is my grandmother." Harry says, "Shall I go and talk to her?" Tom says, "Yes, why not? Please come." So see, Harry is a very good boy. He greets the grandmother also very politely. He goes to near to Tom's grandmother and says, "Good evening, Grandma." Grandmother says, "Good evening, my child. Who is this sweet boy?" Tom says, "This is my friend Harry." Now Harry says, "Good evening, Auntie." So grandmother says, "Good evening, Harry. How are you?" Harry says, "I am fine, thank you." Now Tom says, "Grandmother, can we go out and play?" So he is asking permission from his grandmother. So students, you should also ask permission from your parents and guardians whenever you go out for playing or for any other purpose. Whenever you go out, you always ask for their permission and then you step out of your house. So the grandmother says, "Yes, you may go." So she is also very kind woman. So Tom and Harry together says, "Thank you." Now what happens? Tom and Harry goes to the park. They reach the park and Harry says, "She looks very old." Tom says, "Yes, she is very old. There are wrinkles on the face. She has grey hair. She wears glasses and walks with a stick." Harry says, "How old is she?" Now Tom and Harry are having conversation regarding their grandmother. So Tom is saying that she is very old, she has grey hair, she wears glasses, she walks with a stick, she has wrinkles on her face. So as you can see the image of a grandmother, she has grey hair, she walks with a stick, she wears glasses and she has wrinkles on the face. See here it is wrinkles everywhere, you have the wrinkles. So she is her grandmother. Now Tom says that she is 80 years old. Harry says, "How does she pass her time? Like what does she do all the day?" Tom says, "She gets up very early in the morning, she takes a bath, then she prays and has her breakfast." So she still in her 80 years, she is waking up in the morning, she takes bath and then she prays. You should also pray to God every day for the life they gave you, for the beautiful parents, for this wonderful environment, for the nature. You should always thank God for all these things and pray to God. And then only you should have your breakfast. Like Tom's grandmother, Harry says, "Is your grandmother very good natured?" Like she is very good natured woman or she's a bad nature, she's uh, what you can say that she is uh, polite or she is rude. So no, Tom says she is very good natured and she loves me very much. So Tom's grandmother loves Tom very much. Your grandmother must also be loving you very much, right? Everyone's grandmother loves their granddaughter or son very much. So Tom says, now Harry asks what are her hobbies. So she asks what does her grandmother likes to do. That is known as hobbies. Whatever you like to do in your free time or that's you love to do, that is known as hobbies. So Tom says that my grandmother is very fond of children. She tells us many stories and sometimes she cooks too. So her grandmother is fond of children. She likes children. She tells many stories. You know, our grandmother also used to tell us long stories about fairies. So remember, your grandmother also tells you stories of fairies and uh, animals and many more, no? So grandmother sometimes cooks food too. Now Harry says, "Do you like her?" Tom says, "Yes, I love and respect her." So students, you should love and respect your grandmother because she is very old. She loves you. She tells you stories. She cooks food for you. So you should also give love and respect to her in return. And because they only need love and respect from you. And in this case, Tom's grandmother is very kind, very polite, and very helpful. And she's fond of children. She tells her stories. So she's very good natured and she loves Tom's very much. So Tom's also loves and respects her in return. So basically, you should also learn from Tom how he love and respect his grandmother and do the same with yours too. Clear? Now we will move to your last chapter of the first exam syllabus, that is a visit to friend's house. So we will have a conversation between Mr. Albert and Mr. Watson's family. So let's meet in your next class. Bye bye. Hello, my students. Welcome back. And this is the sixth chapter of your first terminal syllabus, and that is a visit to friend's house. So Mr. and Mrs. Albert visits Mrs. and Mr. Watson on Sunday. So this is a very warm Sunday morning, and Mr. and Mrs. Albert goes to Mr. and Mrs. Watson's family to meet them. So they go, and Mrs. Watson says, "Good morning, Mr. Albert. Good morning, Mrs. Sylvie." So Albert's wife's name is Sylvie. Now Mr. and Mrs. Albert together says, "Good morning, Mrs. Watson." Now Mrs. Watson says, "Please come in." So whenever a guest comes to your house, you always wish them good morning, good evening, anything whenever they come, at what time they come, you wish them according to that and you welcome them to your house. You say, "Please come in." Now what happens? They go in and sit down. You tell them to please have a seat. Now Mr. Watson comes and says, "Good morning." Now Mr. and Mrs. Albert both says, "Good morning, Mr. Watson. Very happy to meet you after a long time." So they both families are meeting after a very long time on a Sunday morning. Now Mrs. Albert says, "That is a very nice tablecloth. Where did you buy it from?" So Mrs. Albert name was Sylvie. So Sylvie is asking that she saw a nice tablecloth, and she is saying, "From where did you buy it?" Mrs. Watson is saying, "We bought it from a new cloth shop in the market." So there's a new cloth shop in the market. So Mrs. Watson brought a nice tablecloth from there. Now Mrs. Albert says, "Where is this shop?" Now Mrs. Watson says, "It is near the park." So near a park, there is a shop, cloth shop, new shop. It has opened recently. And from there, Mrs. Watson has bought a nice tablecloth, and so Mrs. Albert is asking so that she can also buy one nice tablecloth for her house too. Now Mr. Albert says, "That is very nice picture." Mr. Watson says, "We bought it from a picture shop in the market. It is a big shop. It has wide variety of pictures. You too can buy one for your house." Now Mr. and Mrs. Watson are very fond of shopping, I guess. Mrs. Watson bought a nice tablecloth. Mr. Watson bought a picture from the picture shop in the market. And as you can see, students, Mrs. Watson and Mrs. Albert both are fond of cloth shopping. And Mr. Watson and Mr. Albert both are fond of picture shopping. They are fond of pictures. Now Mrs. Albert is asking, where is this shop? So Mr. Watson says it is near the bookshop. So there is a one bookshop over there, and near that there is a picture shop. So they have bought that picture from the picture shop. Now Mr. Albert is saying, where are Mary and James? Now Mary and James are Mr. and Mrs. Watson's children. So Mr. Albert is asking about them, that where are Mary and James? So Mr. Watson says that they are studying in their room. So see how good students are there. They are studying in the Sunday morning also. Do you study in the Sunday morning also like Mary and James? No. You only like playing, right? You should study every day like Mary and James. So what happens now? Mr. Watson calls, children, please come here. Mrs. and Mr. Albert are here. So they have come to your house. So you have to meet them. Please come here, children, Mr. Watson is saying. Now Mary and James, after studying, enters the room and says, good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Albert. Together they says. Now Mr. and Mrs. Albert replies, good morning. So from this what you understood, that you should study every day like Mary and James. They're not like कि आज Sunday है नहीं पढ़ेंगे. Not like that. Okay. You should study every day. Every day 2 hours you have to study. And see how polite the children are. They are obeying their parents. Obedient children are there. They are obeying their parents. They come, they greet the guest. Good morning. So whenever someone comes to your house, you always greet them and tell them to please come in and have a seat. And you then talk with them. You serve your juices, your sweets, everything you serve whenever someone comes to your house. These are manners. You have to learn these things. So the two ladies, as you can see, were fond of shopping of clothes. And the two men, Mr. Watson and Mr. Albert, both were fond of picture shopping. And the two children were very kind, obedient, polite children. Understood, students?